Postscript, Foreman. What if the person you fell in love with as a child never even knew if you were rich or poor? This is the story of John and Lara, two children from completely different worlds who never saw the walls between them until life forced them to. The sun had barely risen over Lara's house, a grand home with marble floors, tall white pillars, and a garden full of roses trimmed every morning by the gardener. Inside, Lara jumped out of bed in a rush, pulling on her uniform messily, her hair still tangled from sleep. She ran down the marble staircase, bag bouncing on her shoulder, straight toward the door. "Lara, sweetheart, have your breakfast first," Messi said, looking up from his newspaper. "Sorry, Father, I'm late for school," Messi chuckled, setting down his newspaper. "Lara, tell me something. What day is it today?" Lara froze mid-step, trying to piece the days together in her sleepy mind. "Saturday?" Her own words echoed back to her, and realization hit instantly. "Oh, I completely forgot. It's the weekend." She burst into laughter, covering her face with her hands, as Messi laughed along, shaking his head at his daughter's morning chaos. Across town, in a small house with a rusted tin roof, another morning was unfolding very differently. John jolted awake in a panic, running to the window to grab his uniform, the only one he owned. But it wasn't there. It was still outside on the clothesline, soaking wet from last night's wash. "Mom, what did you do? It's still wet. How am I supposed to go to school like this?" His mother, sitting nearby peeling vegetables, burst out laughing and tossed a slipper playfully toward him. "Silly boy, it's Saturday. Go back to sleep a little longer." John froze, then rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed at himself. "Since you're already up, go find some work. Sitting idle at home isn't good for you." John nodded quietly. There was no complaint in his eyes, only quiet acceptance. This was his life. Work didn't wait for weekends when a family needed every dollar it could find. He made his way to a small fruit shop nearby, where he worked part-time, arranging crates of apples and oranges, wiping the dust off each one like it truly mattered. He was mid-task, sleeves rolled up, when a voice made him freeze. You work here?" John turned around. It was Messi, and standing just behind him, in a soft yellow dress, was Lara. John's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't known her family had this kind of money, and Lara had no idea that the boy she smiled at every day behind a fruit cart had nothing at all. Yes, I'm here. The owner stepped out for a bit. I'm just looking after the fruits for him." The lie slipped out smoothly, not from a desire to deceive, but from a quiet fear. If Lara knew the truth, would she still look at him the same way? "All right then, what's the rate on these fruits?" John told him the price, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Here, take this. Give the rest to the owner when he returns." But before John could take the money, Lara spoke up. "No, Father. Let's pay him ourselves when the owner comes back." "Why, sweetheart, just give it to him. He'll pass it along." Lara glanced toward John, the smallest smile forming on her lips. "Let's just wait a little longer." John didn't understand it in that moment, but Lara wasn't really waiting for any shopkeeper. She was quietly finding a reason to stay a few extra minutes near a boy she didn't yet realize she was drawn to. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 20. "Come on, let's go. Looks like he isn't coming today." "No, Father. Let's wait just a bit more." Meanwhile, John, sweating quietly under the pressure, pulled out his phone and sent a desperate message to a friend nearby. Minutes later, his friend walked in casually, playing the part of the shop owner perfectly. Messi paid him, collected the fruits, and the two of them turned to leave. As they walked away, Lara looked back one last time, a glance John felt more than saw. The moment they were gone, John let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Oh my God. That night, under a sky scattered with stars, two phones rang at the exact same time in two very different houses. John and Lara talked like they always did, laughing about nothing, talking about everything. Neither of them spoke about money. Neither of them spoke about class, status, or the invisible walls already standing between their two worlds. Because to them, in that moment, none of it existed yet. all that existed was the sound of each other's voice. A promise beneath the old oak tree. John and Lara started talking every single day. During school, whenever lunch break came around, they'd find their way to the same spot, that old oak tree at the edge of the yard. Lara would open her lunchbox, and without fail, she'd slide half of it over to John. John always refused at first. "I already ate." Lara would smile, narrowing her eyes just slightly. "You're a terrible liar, John. I know you didn't eat anything today." John wouldn't argue. He'd just laugh quietly and take the food. It was such a small thing, but it carried more care than he ever knew how to put into words. The days passed like that. They did homework together, shared books at the same library table, and walked half the way home, side by side, slowly, like neither of them was in any hurry to say goodbye. But there was a question that kept turning over in Lara's mind. One afternoon, as the sun started to dip and light filtered through the oak leaves onto their faces, she finally asked, "John, what's your dream?" John went quiet for a moment. His eyes dropped to the ground, like he was digging up something old and painful. Then he said softly, "I want to build a life where my mother never has to worry about money again." There was a weight in his voice, the kind only someone who's watched their mother count coins late at night could really understand. Lara's expression softened. She smiled and asked, "And yours? What about you, Lara?" Lara looked up at the sky, where the first hints of orange were beginning to spread. "I don't know. I just don't want us to stop being friends." It was a simple answer, but it was so honest it hit John right in the chest. For the first time, he looked straight into her eyes that had always felt like the safest place he knew. "I promise," John said, his voice trembling just slightly. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here." Lara didn't say anything back. She just nodded slowly, like she was locking that promise away somewhere safe. Then, together, they carved their initials into the old oak's trunk, small, inside a little heart. J. Red Heart, L. The wind moved gently through the leaves, and between two hearts, something was growing, still innocent, but already deep. They had no idea that these happy days wouldn't last much longer. In just a few days, a truth was about to surface, one that would put not just their bond, but that very promise to its greatest test. Because behind every moment of happiness, sometimes a storm is already waiting.